Okay, it's saying we're live, but I'm just going to double check to make sure on the portal that we're live.
Okay.
Okay, we are now live.
Okay, excellent. So I'll call this December 2nd, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting to order at 6:04. This meeting will be held virtually where committee members, staff, and the public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township's website. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information attained is considered part of the public record. All rules apply to the meeting as if everyone was attending in person, and if there is a problem with the technology impacting the proceedings of the meeting may be recessed. So we have an agenda before us. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? I'll just let you know, Madam Clerk, I am having trouble seeing all the participants on my screen.
Okay, that's fine. I'll be watching.
Okay, can I get a mover then to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Seconded by, we're going to do Councillor Willis. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none and hearing none. Adoption of the minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the November 4th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting be adopted as circulated. Are there any edits, errors, or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, can I get someone to adopt those minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Grant, seconded by. Seconded by Councillor Broderick. All those in favor? Motion is carried. I can see everybody now, by the way. And now we come to the meat and potatoes. Public meeting D13-018-2023-101 Jack Davey Drive, Lot 13, Loyalist East Business Park, Roger Colborne, minor variance. Mr. Soni, are you leading the charge on this, or Mr. James? Or Mr. Where have we got to? Savanash?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, my connection got disconnected in between. But if we are at the agenda item, I will be providing a quick overview on the application.
Perfect.
Just to start with, the subject property located at 101 Jack Davey Drive is requesting minor variance to permit non-visitor parking to be located in the exterior side yard, to reduce the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 4.7 meters, and to reduce the minimum required setback of the loading space from 15 meters to 7.1 meters from the street line. Staff has reviewed the application in compliance with the Planning Act and against the 4 tests as required by Planning Act. So the general intent and purpose of the official plan is met as the proposed use is permitted in the industrial designation. The general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is also met as the proposed use is permitted in the light industrial exception 12, which is M1-12 zone. And the requested variances do not negatively impact the neighboring properties or the streetscape. The requested variances are desirable and appropriate use of land, as the variances will in turn improve the overall design and function of the site and results in an efficient use of the land. And lastly, the variances can be considered minor as allowing the non-visitor parking in the exterior side yard, reducing the required interior side yard setback, and the setback of the loading bay from the street line results in a more functional and efficient site plan. The requested variances will not have any negative implications on the surrounding uses or the streetscape, and hence can be considered minor in nature. So for this reason, and the reason mentioned above, planning staff is of the opinion to approve the proposed minor variance application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soni. I'll turn to the committee now if there are any questions for staff with respect to the report. Mr. Lindsay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to staff, and again, I'm mindful of the fact that this application is also going through site plan control, but when I took a look at it, the first thing that struck me was that is not this building that's being proposed on this site too large for the site? And I guess what I'm getting at is that, first of all, I'd like to know what the size of the proposed building is. I think I saw on the diagram it's 338 square meters, which is a fairly large building. And then from that, I'd like to have a clarification as to where the parking is being proposed. And does the existing parking spaces, will it interfere with truck movement on the site? Because when I look at the plan, I see how the trucks would access and egress the site, but I'm not sure how it functions overall. In other words, how many truck movements are required on the street to gain access? And in essence, does the truck movement compromise any of the proposed parking spaces? It's not clear when I look at the site plan. This also leads to the question as to where are the fire lanes on this site plan? Is it the same as the truck route? And I go back to my basic assertion, is this site too small or conversely the building too large to accommodate this proposed business? And what concerns me is that half the building is being used for an office component, which is not normally found in an industrial park, at least to that size in a building. I can understand maybe 10 or 15% of the building being utilized for an office component, but 50% seems to be rather large. Now, I understand that the official plan does allow this, so perhaps there could be an explanation as to how the site is going to function to allay my concerns that the building's not too big. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. I'll turn to Mr. Soni, and I think Mr. Griffin will probably tag team as well. So go ahead, gentlemen.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try to respond to questions. There were a series of questions, and if I am not able to answer any one of that, feel free to intervene and ask me the questions, and maybe James can also add to that. So just give me a quick minute here. Let me go to the site plan. It's quite to the bottom. So the first response is the building footage is close to 338 square meters. And the area of the building meets the minimum required or the maximum permitted lot coverage as per the zoning provisions. So area wise, the building does meet the zoning provisions for M1-12 zone. In regards to the functionality of site from parking and loading bay perspective, two loading bays are required as per zoning bylaw general provision section 4.22, and on the site they have provided three loading bays. The staff has made sure that the width of the loading bay is 9 meters, which is a standard width required for a loading bay, and then the aisle width from that 9 meter onwards to where the driveway ends is 7 meters, which again is in compliance with the zoning bylaw. And nowhere there is compromise for any parking in terms of providing or to meet the requirement for the loading bay. So I think that being said, staff made sure before bringing forward the minor variance application to committee that it's functional and fundamental, and in a way it meets all the zoning provisions other than the provisions for which it is requiring the minor variance. And maybe if James want to add a bit further in this justification.
So, thank you through the chair to committee member Lindsay. Avinash, you did a great job. Excuse me, outlining everything. Just add that to Avinash's point, the lot coverage of this site is 55%, and the proposed lot coverage is 18%. So it is well within the lot coverage. In terms of fire route, the emergency services has been circulated throughout the minor variance and as well as the site plan process. They have no concerns with accessing the site or firefighting concerns. Similarly, as Avinash outlined, the truck movements, they don't compromise any parking spaces as well. They allow for, we've had a thorough review with the applicant and their consultants to ensure that the access is appropriate and that there's proper circulation throughout the site. So staff are not concerned in that regard. I'll also note in terms of the question regarding the office space, while in other municipalities it might not be a permitted use, the Loyalist Business Park, or this business park as it is our light industrial business park, does permit a administrative and professional office as of right. So it's not an accessory use. It is a permitted use as of right. So if this built, like, for example, if someone were to come in on this lot and want to just do a professional office, that's something that would be permitted without any relief required. So while it may not be the norm for a general industrial or a major industrial site to have a professional office as a main permitted use, in this instance it is. So there's no concerns from staff in that regard as well.
Mr. Lindsay? Is that good?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think that satisfies my concerns. I just wanted to make sure that staff was comfortable with respect to the functionality of the site and that the minor variances were not compromising any of that ability. So I am okay with it now. Thank you.
Excellent. Other committee members, questions for staff with respect to the report? Not seeing any. So I'll turn to the clerk to ask if the applicant or a representative wants to present anything to the committee.
I do not see the applicant or representatives for this item currently at the moment.
Okay. Any members of the public? Deputy Clerk?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, very good. So we do have a recommendation. Councillor Broderick?
I'd be pleased to make the recommendation that the report from the Development Services Division dated December 2, 2024, read D13-018-2023-101 Jack Davey Drive, Lot 13, Loyalist East Business Park, Roger Colborne, minor variance be received, and that the excuse me, and that the minor variance application D13-018-2023 affecting property described as Lot 13 on Plan 29M-10 in Loyalist East Business Park, Loyalist Township in the County of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly addressed as 101 Jack Davey Drive, to permit non-visitor parking, Section 4-27H, to be located in the exterior yard, reduce the interior side yard setback, Section 5.25.612.2 C3 and Section 5.25.2 C from 6 meters to 4.7 meters, reduce the minimum required setback, Section 4.22 E of the loading space from 15 meters to 7.1 meters, and the street line to be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in report SR 2799.
So moved. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Willis, any comments on the motion?
No.
Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We come now to 5.2, D13-019-2023, 107 Jack Davey Drive, Lot 14, Loyalist East Business Park, Roger Colborne, minor variance. And I'll turn again to Mr. Soni.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'll also give you a quick overview of this minor variance application. So for the subject property located at 107 Jake Davey Drive, the applicant is requesting a minor variance to permit non-visitor parking to be located within the front yard of the subject property and to reduce the drive aisle width for accessing the parking spaces from 7 meters to 6 meters. So planning staff were able to review the proposal with the 4 tests of minor variance as required by the Planning Act. So in that, the general intent and purpose of the official plan is met as the use is permitted in the industrial designation. The general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is met as the proposed use is permitted in the light industrial exception 12, which is M1-12 zone, and the requested variances do not negatively impact the neighboring properties and streetscape. The requested variances are desirable and appropriate use of land as the variances will improve the overall design and function of the site and results in an efficient use of the land. And lastly, the variance can be considered minor as allowing the non-visitor parking in the front yard and reducing the aisle width for access to parking spaces does not affect the industrial activities for the site and is resulting in making the site more functional and efficient. The requested variances will not have any negative implications on the surrounding users or the streetscape and hence can be considered minor in nature. So for this reason and the reason mentioned above, the staff is of the opinion to approve the proposed minor variance application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soni. I'll turn again to the committee if there are any questions with respect to the report. Councillor Willis.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. Could staff explain, are these 2 projects related to one another? Are they adjacent? Is it, I find it strange that we've got 2 applications from the same people.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant of both the property is like the same owner, and the applicant is representing the same owner and they are trying to process both the applications simultaneously. But in fundamental, both of these are separately conveyable individual properties. And that's why 2 separate applications for minor variance have been requested. I hope that answers the question.
Go ahead, Councillor Willis, follow up.
So it's 2 separate properties, but it's going to be 1 building. Is that what I'm understanding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's as depicted on the site plans. All the interior side yard setbacks have been maintained, and it's not a single building over the 2 lots. It's 1 building on lot 14, and then separate another building on lot 13.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I know our role here is not to review the site plan in depth, but I need to have an answer to a few questions in order to feel comfortable with the variances being requested. So if I can beg your indulgence, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, where are the loading bays with respect to this particular building, and how are they going to be accessed? I'm assuming it's going to have to be through the front of the building because I did not see any laneways or anything around to the rear. So perhaps that can be clarified. And I'll go through my questions first, and then staff can answer them in sequence. And again, the truck movement from the site, from the street, it's again looking like the trucks have to access going front in, and then one of them tends to turn into the physically challenged parking space in order to accommodate its movement. I'm assuming that the trucks then have to back out onto the road. I'd just like to have some clarification of this. Similarly, fire lanes, I assume they will be identified through fire protection services. From staff's perspective, I would think that a smaller building on the site could allow the loading bays perhaps in the back of the building, which then makes one wonder, is this building again too large for the parcel land it's sitting on? And one of the things that troubled me when I read the report, there was a statement in the report saying, as all neighboring properties in the Loyalist East Business Park are light industrial, allowing parking in the front yard will not negatively impact surrounding uses or the streetscape. I can understand that concept, but it was the next statement that sort of led some concerns. Similar variances have been approved for other properties in the business park. Well, if that's the case, why isn't the zoning bylaw changed to allow this to happen so the proponents do not have to come to this committee? So perhaps there's a history on this particular site that I'm not aware of. So I'm just wondering if staff can address those questions. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll again try to respond one question at a time, and James can intervene. So starting with the first question on loading bay. So 2 loading bays has been proposed on the very center of the property, and it can directly access from the street to the loading position. The dimensions of the loading bay is as required by the zoning bylaw. So in a way, functionality to the loading bay is accurate. The site plan is a bit congested. That's why it's creating confusion. The path that you see for access lane is a path for vehicle to access the parking space, because the second variance that is required is to reduce the aisle width from 7 meters to 6 meters. And the staff wanted to make sure that reduction in the aisle width from 7 meters to 6 meters would make sure that there won't be any accessibility concerns to any of the parking spaces. So that curvature going into the accessible parking space is not for the truck, but rather it's for the accessible parking space. Another thing is, if you, I'm not sure it was a part of question or not, but I'll quickly clarify. If you were to see the truck that is on the very bottom or towards the front yard of the driveway, then it is truck awaiting access to the loading space. So let's say there are 2 trucks already in space, then staff need to make sure, as per the zoning provisions, that 3rd truck can be accommodated on site until one of the truck is clear. So I think that space can be an ideal spot for the trucks to turn out and go out of the site, providing it sufficient space to turn around and safely exit the site. And I think that is my response in relation to the truck movements and functionality of the site in general. In regards to the area of the site, again, like previous application, the subject property meets the minimum or maximum permitted lot coverage on the site. So again, it is in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So I think, okay, so I'm just trying to recall the questions here simultaneously. So another question was on why the sentence of like similar uses, or I think the zoning bylaw relief, or why zoning bylaw is requesting. So I think it's a standard provision in the zoning bylaw that for industrial properties, the land zone industrial should have the loading, or sorry, the parking spaces either in the interior side yard or the rear side yard. I think comprehensive zoning bylaw review is happening in the background, and as highlighted, that would be considered as a part of this application, of that review. But as a part of this application, currently the zoning bylaw does not permit it, and that's why it's triggering the requirement for minor variance on that end. And lastly, I'm not sure if this is a question or not, but I'll also mention that before I give the stage to James, that Loyalist East Business Park, majority of the properties are of light industrial nature. So initially, the main intent to have the parking spaces in the rear yard or interior side yard was to have streetscape and or make the industrial use more compatible to the surrounding residential use, if that would be the case. But in this case, since all the adjacent uses are of light industrial nature, that's why that was mentioned, that providing parking into the front yard would not have that much of a negative impact on the streetscape and neighboring uses as compared to, let's say, if this site were to be in adjacent to some residential uses. So I think I tried to answer all the questions that I can recall, but James, if you want to add to it.
Yes, thank you. Through to committee member Lindsay. Good job, Avinash. Yeah, went over everything. A few things I would add is, as you can see, the application date is from 2023. We've went over this site with the applicant very thoroughly, looking at multiple different variations and having parking in the back, having parking in different locations, and in working with our engineering division and working with our emergency services division, consulting them all the way through this. This was a where we came to. So it's not a matter of just accepting the fact that maybe this is an over design or there's not the functionality. I will admit that the drawing is busy, but staff have had a thorough review and are very confident of the functionality of the site. The other thing I would note is it's not a matter of every lot in the business park has had that variance. There are two very similar lots that are lot 7 and lot 8 within the business park that are of a very similar lot configuration and aren't, unfortunately, when the subdivision was being created, I think it was something that we didn't fully recognize in site development, that the sites might struggle with not having parking in the front. So when in the report it was referencing other lots, it was referencing those lots of very similar lot configuration. It's only 2 lots within the business park out of 18 lots or 19 lots now. So
James,
it's only a handful.
You're comfortable with the fact that like trucks would have to back into the loading bay from the street through an area where there's parking on both sides?
So through the chair, so that is not the case. As you can see under lot 9, so they can come in, turn around, and then back up to parking lot, not parking space 9. They can turn in, back up through. And with the width of the parking lot, we are confident. And also, it's our understanding, it should be noted, these aren't going to be large scale trucks. You can see the intent of this business is going to be, we're not talking semis here. We're talking smaller trucks, or even the vans. You see the Sprinter type vans. It's not intended to be a site that's coming in with 18 wheelers and doing lots of maneuvers. The intent of this site is really to be of a lighter industrial scale with smaller type trucks, and that is the intent.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I've had my questions answered, and I'm glad to see that staff is comfortable and has gone through various iterations of the site plan in order to come up with this proposal. I think at the end of the day, the 4 tests are satisfied as stipulated in the report that staff has provided. So, and again, our role is not to do site planning. So I just wanted to, now that I had my questions answered, I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Mr. James, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair. Through Chair to staff, just a clarification question, me being not very comfortable in the application process. Just the item number 18 on the application form. The date the subject land was acquired by the current owner is shown in process. Is that a usual thing?
So through you, Mr. Chair, this lands are currently being occupied by or owned by the township, and we have purchase and sales agreement with a condition for the interested owner to enter into site plan agreement with the township. Once the site plan agreement is executed, then they can proceed with the execution of the purchase and sales agreement. If I handled that accurately, or if James, you want to add. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Avinash.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll turn to the public. I'll look to the deputy clerk. Actually, sorry, to the applicant first, if the applicant is here, but I'm guessing not because they weren't for the first item.
No, Deputy Mayor, they're not waiting in the waiting room, so to speak, and I do not see any members of the public either.
Okay, then I'll turn back to the committee as we do have a recommendation. Councillor Willis.
I will move that the report from the Development Services Division, December 2nd, 2024, read D13-019-2023, 107 Jack Davey Drive, Lot 14, Loyalist East Business Park, Roger Colborne, minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13-019-2023 affecting property described as Lot 14 on Plan 29M-10 in Loyalist East Business Park, Loyalist Township in the County of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly addressed as 107 Jack Davey Drive, to permit non-visitor parking, Section 4.27H, to be located within the front yard of the subject property, and to reduce the drive aisle width, Section 4.27DV, for accessing parking spaces from 7 meters to 6 meters be approved, subject to the following condition: that the approval variances apply only to the locations as identified on the drawings submitted with the application, and that the proposed minor variance be approved for the reasons cited in staff report SR 2603.
So moved. Can I get a seconder for that? Mr. James. Any comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Now we turn our attention to 5.3, D13-006-2024, 6580 County Road 2. I am guessing that is a Polish name that I cannot pronounce. Minor variance.
Thank you. Through the chair, the proposed application for 6580 County Road 2 proposes to increase the height of a detached accessory building from 4 meters to 6 meters to allow for the construction of an accessory building on the property. Staff are recommending approval of the application as it meets the four tests of minor variance. First, the general intent and purpose of the official plan is met as the proposed use is a permitted use and the requested variance does not conflict with the ruler designation. Second, the general intent and the purpose of the zoning bylaw is met as the increase in height of the proposed accessory building will not negatively impact the streetscape of the neighboring uses and the building will be incidental and secondary to the primary residential use. Third, the requested variance is considered an appropriate development of the land as the proposed accessory building is in keeping with the proposed residential use of the property. Fourth, the variance can be considered as minor as the height and location of the proposed accessory building would not negatively impact uh, result in negative streetscape impact or an adverse impact of neighboring properties, thereby resulting in a proposed development that is in keeping with the area. Therefore, staff are recommending the approval for minor variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn over to the committee for questions related to the staff report. Mr. Lindsay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question to staff and they're dealing with the applicant. I just want to make sure that when I see a variance to allow for an accessory garage with a potential for an 18-foot garage door, it tends to sometimes lead to a commercial activity that occurs on the site that is not consistent with what the zoning is, even though it may be under the auspices of a home-based business or an accessory business. They have a tendency to get larger, start attracting more traffic, etc. When staff was dealing with the proponent, did they clearly get the indication from the applicant that this was just for residential purposes, as stated in the report, that the applicant's requesting the height of proposed accessory building to be 6 meters as compared to the 4-meter maximum permitted for height for accessory building? The increase in height is being requested to provide enough height required to accommodate storage and shelving. That's it, I hope, not to accommodate trucks and everything for servicing as an accessory business in a residential area. I'm just wondering if that can be just commented on or clarified.
So, through the chair, I would like to clarify that we have confirmed from the applicant that this would be just for shelving and storing purposes rather than any home-based industry. If I am wrong, then James would like to add something. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Through the chair to committee member Lindsay, I can confirm it is not being used as a home-based business. We've had thorough conversations, and I know Bo is here tonight, and he can maybe speak to that more, the applicant, about the possibilities of a home-based business on this property. But he has made it abundantly clear to us that the intent of this building is not to be used as a home-based business.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Thank you to staff. Committee members, other questions with respect to staff's report? Seeing none, I'll turn to the deputy clerk to see whether the applicant or their representative wishes to speak.
Yes, they are, and I'm going to bring them in as a panelist. Just one moment. He's now joined as a panelist.
Good day, sir. Please, I think you're muted, but please
There we go. Is that better?
Yes, sir. So
All right,
please,
excellent.
please proceed.
Thank you for checking out my application there. Yeah, right now the building is just to increase for storage as an accessory building. So that's pretty much it. I think one of the counselors there was talking about an 18-foot door. That's not really the case. It's a 18-foot high building, if I'm not mistaken. So the doors are actually quite a bit smaller than that, but that's kind of a minor point. But yeah, right now it's just a slightly taller garage, if you will.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll turn to the committee. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much, sir. I'll turn to the deputy clerk again to see if there's any members of the public wishing to speak.
I'm seeing none at this time.
Okay, then I'll turn back to the committee. We do have a recommendation before us in the report. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a minute there.
If
I
you
move
can
the
just,
recommendation.
sorry, just one moment. I'm just going to put Bo back in
Okay.
as an attendee before you call out the motion. Just one moment.
Yep.
Okay, you can proceed. Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. I'd move the recommendation that the report from Development Services Division dated December 2nd, 2024, read D13-006-2024-6580 County Road 2, Boguslaw, Wojtyra, minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13-006-2024 affecting property described as part lot 12, concession for Ernesttown, as in Lennox and Addington, 168048 Loyalist in the geographic township of Ernesttown, Loyalist Township, in the county of Lennox and Addington, more particularly located at 6580 County Road 2, to increase the height of the detached accessory building from 4 to 6 meters, section 4.14, be approved, subject to the condition the variance only applies to the drawings submitted with the application.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. So moved. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Willis, any comments on the motion?
None for me, sir.
Looking down, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And now we turn our attention to 5.4, D10-009-2024 and D10-010-2024, 5769 County Road 2, Jennifer Cox Wemp and Jason Wemp, Severance and Easement. And I will turn to staff, whoever is presenting the report.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, the proposed application D10-009-2024 for 5769 County Road 2 proposes consent to sever one new lot within an area of 0.7 hectares plus or minus and 60 meters plus or minus, and retained lot with an area of approximately 13.5 hectares plus or minus and 139 meters plus or minus of frontage on the County Road 2. The proposed application D10-010-2024 proposes a consent for easement for a mutual entrance between the proposed severed and retained lot. The subject property is located at 5769 County Road 2. The subject property is designated rural in Schedule A of the Township Official Plan and Zone Rural RU in the Township Zoning Bylaw 2001 as amended. The proposed lot configuration maintains the rural character of the area and does not impact existing neighboring rural uses. However, retained lot does not comply with the minimum road frontage required by the official plan. To meet the road frontage requirement for the retained parcel, a minor variance application D13-012-2024 has been submitted. The retained parcel meet the minimum lot size and other requirements, ensuring conformity with the zoning with the official plan policy. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of the consent application as it is consistent with the PPS and official plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the committee for questions with respect to the report. No particular questions on this one. Very well. I will turn to the deputy clerk to ask if the applicant wishes to speak.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, I do see that they're here waiting, so I'll put them in as a panelist.
Okay, very well. Hello.
Hi.
Please proceed if you've got anything any information you want the committee to have.
We really don't have. We're just
Okay.
participating. Just wanted to be here and see what's happening.
Yep, very much appreciated. Thank you. Committee, any particular questions for the applicants? Seeing none, thank you to the applicants. I'll wait.
Yes, just one moment. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. Perfect. And then I'll turn back to you, Deputy Clerk. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak?
Deputy Mayor, there are none.
Then I'll turn back to the committee. We do have a recommendation with this report. That the report from the Development Services Division, date December 2nd, 2024, re 5769 County Road 2, Jason Cox and Jennifer Cox Wemp, Severance and Easement be received. That the application D10-009-2024 affecting property described as part lot 28 concession 4 Ernesttown, as in LNA 83649 south of Highway 401, S/T ER 14374, Loyalist Township in the County of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly located at 5769 County Road 2, be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in Report SR 2811. Can I get a mover to that effect? Councillor Broderick, seconded by Mr. James. Any comments on the motion?
None.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And our final item of business this evening, 5.5, D13-012-2024, 5769 County Road 2, Jennifer Cox Wemp and Jason Wemp, minor variance.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, the proposed application for 5769 County Road 2 proposes to reduce the minimum road frontage for a non-residential lot in the rural zone for 150 meter to 135 meter. Staff are recommending approval of the application as it meets 4 tests of minor variance. First, the general intent and purpose of the official plan is met as the requested variance would not impact the recognized existing non-residential uses and the potential for future non-residential uses of the property. Second, the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is met as the requested reduction in required road frontage will not adversely impact other recognized non-residential uses of the land. Third, the requested variance is not anticipated to negatively affect recognized uses on the land, and there is sufficient distancing between neighboring development existing land uses, and therefore the proposal is a desirable use of land, building, or structure. Fourth, the variance can be considered as minor as the request result in sufficient access to the support residential development and a variety of non-residential activities as is not considered to negatively impact the rural nature of the area. Therefore, staff are recommending the approval for minor variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the committee. Questions? Seeing none, I'll turn to the deputy clerk. It's the same applicant. Do they wish to speak on this particular item?
If they do, I would suggest they raise their hand.
I'll ask the applicants to raise their hand if they wish to speak. Otherwise, we'll carry on.
I'm seeing none.
Perfect. Any members of the public, deputy clerk?
There are no members of the public.
Okay, then we do have a recommendation in our report before us this evening. Councillor Broderick.
I'll move that the report for the Development Services Division dated December 2nd, 2024, re 5769 County Roads 2, Jennifer Cox Wemp and Jason Wemp minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13-012-2024 affecting property described as part lot 28 concession for Ernesttown as in LA 83649 south of Highway 401 S/TER 14374 Loyalist Township in the County of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly located at 5769 County Road 2, to reduce the minimum road frontage for a non-residential lot in the rural zone from 150 meters to 135 meters be approved as it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance.
So moved. Can I get a seconder to that effect? Mr. Lindsay, any comments on the motion?
No, sir.
And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Before we proceed, I'll just note for staff in the recommendation in the previous report, it had Jason's name as Cox, not Wemp. So there's a discrepancy there. We obviously know who we're talking about, but just for the record. And we now come to item number 6, decisions. Application for sign bylaw minor variance, 89 Jack Davey Drive.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, we received a request for a sign variance for 89 Jack Davey Drive. There's currently a site plan application for this lot within the business park. There are 2 signs proposed, and it's on a warehouse and office building. The signs are proposed on sides of the building that are not adjacent to a street. The sign bylaw requires that any sign be erected, it be adjacent to a street. But given the lot configuration and that it's on the cul-de-sac, and the site layout, it was very difficult to get a sign that was facing Jack Davey. So as a result, the signs are facing the interior side yards, but staff are confident that it meets the intent of the sign bylaw and is an appropriate use of the building's facade, and therefore are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I'll turn to the committee for any questions with respect to this variance. Mr. Lindsay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A quick question to staff. I think I saw it in the report that the placement of these signs, there's no concerns with respect to an aesthetic perspective, and the sign placement, I am assuming, will be covered off in the site plan agreement, at least on one of the drawings attached to the site plan agreement, showing the locations of the sign. So when the agreement is signed by the municipality, it's clearly indicated where these signs are going to be. Is that my understanding, Ms. James?
Through the chair to committee member Lindsay, that's correct. So the drawings that you see will be attached to the site plan agreement. So any variation would require a site plan amendment and approval by the municipality.
And the applicant is aware of all this, because sometimes when they put the building up, oh, we need to move it. So they be back through your process again, if that's the case.
We have had a few site plan amendments for signs, so we make them very much aware.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Griffin. Any other questions with regard to this? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us that the report from the Development Services Division, December 2nd, 2024, reapplication for sign bylaw minor variance 89 Jack Davey Drive be received, and that minor variance to bylaw 2022-053, being a bylaw to regulate signs and other advertising devices to permit signs on two sides of the proposed building that are not facing a public thoroughfare, be approved. Can I get a mover to that effect? Councillor Willis, seconded by Mr. Lindsay. Any comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Other business, technical consent applications approved through staff delegated authority in 2024. This is just a motion to be received, but does staff have any comments?
Through the chair, nothing further to add from the report. Thank you.
Okay. Committee members, any questions for staff with respect to this? Then I would request a mover to receive the report. Councillor Broderick, seconded by Councillor Willis. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Our next meeting is in 2025. Be happy new year for us all, January 6th. And right now I would entertain a motion to adjourn for now. Councillor Willis, seconded by Mr. Lindsay. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned at exactly 7 p.m. Thank you to the committee. Thank you for all your work in 2024, and we'll see you in 2025.
Nathan.
Yes.